everyone. So in my last video, I was talking about the bifurcation of consciousness in the two-world split. And I got some comments from people that said, great information, now what do I do with it? So today I want to talk to you about how to navigate this two-world split as a multidimensional. Let's talk about, first of all, how your mind works. And we're going to use a paradigm about levels or layers of consciousness, all right? 3D consciousness, the hallmark of 3D consciousness is polarity or duality or ego consciousness. That means me and you, us and them, good and bad, right and wrong. Polarity, two choices. The problem with ego consciousness is the mind shuts down the ability to see other possibilities as soon as it perceives something as being right. You're never going to find a jihadist or Ku Klux Klan guy who's like, oh, interesting perspective. Thank you for enlightening me. Why are they so dangerous? Because they think they're right, okay? Now, this right-wrong thinking is the hallmark of egoic consciousness, and it's needed in 3D. If you didn't have that, it would take you like 3 hours to figure out how to drive home from work every day. The problem with duality is that it doesn't take context into account. It thinks in absolutes. So you can say, well, it's wrong to kill people. All right, what if you're a soldier on the battlefield? What if someone's coming at you with a machete? What if you're dying of cancer, you have 3 hours to live and you can't handle the pain anymore? So the way that you break out of this egoic polarity 3D consciousness is instead of thinking about, am I right? You actually want to be thinking about whether or not you're being effective. Now, in the last video, we said there's these two forms of consciousness. The energetic of one form of consciousness seeks safety, and it is held together by fear. And the other seeks authenticity, and it is held together by love. And we also said in the last video, and if you didn't see it, please go up to our YouTube channel called Quantum Shiwa, S-H-I-W-A, and subscribe to that. But the other polarity is held together by the energetic of love. So we've got fear and love. And we said that you're not absolutely in one or the other. You bounce around between others. You could be in one polarity in one issue and another in another issue. And you want to navigate, the first place that you can start being more effective is to start understanding if you are navigating from fear or love. And that'll show you where you are. Now, 3D consciousness isn't going anywhere. The interface for 3D is the ego. And the ego is like the museum curator of the museum of self. So it'll have a room and it'll put together a collection of food I like. And pizza's in there, and strawberries in there. Brussels sprouts not in that room, okay? That's the job of the ego. And the ego always, always, always will seek safety, and it will feel threatened when it does not feel comfortable, all right? This is all Freudian stuff, you know, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, totally accepted paradigm. Now let's go to the next layer of consciousness, which we're calling in Quantum Shiwa 4D consciousness. Why? Harder to get to, takes work to get to, and this is the layer of subconscious and archetypes, all right? Now, 4D is where the fear originates from for most people, all right? And this is important for you to know because it's not conscious, all right? And what is happening in 4D is that the ego feels threatened, and so it is engaging in a bunch of different psychological defenses, ego defenses. There are 12 of them, but I want to talk about 2 today. And the first one I want to talk about is identification. And the ego defense of identification, basically how that works is that the ego identifies with a belief or an image or a group that it sees as ideal to the ego. So I'm going to identify with this group because I think they're good people, they're doing the right thing, they're, they're what I want to be, they're idyllic, all right? So the ego will start identifying with that, but it's happening at a subconscious level, all right? Now, what you're seeing right now is the ego trying to cling to these old paradigms as they're starting to get dismantled before our very eyes. And the problem is that in 3D, we tend to think if someone's not doing something right, then the way to make them do better is to make them feel like crap, so they try harder, so that they do better, so that they feel good. The whole educational system is based on this principle. So little Johnny comes home with a D in his report card. What do his parents do? They ground him so he studies hard. So when he takes the next test, he does better so that he feels good. Globally around the world, this is pretty much how it's done in 3D. The problem is we know that positive reinforcement 1,000 times more effective than negative reinforcement. So what you're seeing on social media is people trying to get people to feel better and do the right thing by yelling at them louder or criticizing them more or shaming them so that they will come into another belief. And when you ask them, what are you doing? They're saying, well, I'm planting seeds. No, you're not. No, you're not. When people feel criticized, shamed, or judged, they become more entrenched in their identification with another group so that the ego feels better and it doesn't feel like it's wrong, all right? And what you're doing is not effective. It's kind of like saying, stop doing what you're doing subconsciously. Can you? Let's try it out. I want you to stop your heartbeat right now. Did you? Probably not. Should I yell at you louder and start calling you stupid and then you'll be able to do it? No. No, that's not how it works. So 4D, this unconscious stuff that's coming up to be resolved, the unification of the polarities, which is another video on the YouTube channel, please subscribe, talks about why this is happening and how 4D is now starting to unify these poles, okay? So you can't get people to do or stop doing what they're doing subconsciously. And the whole problem is it's not effective. If you guys think that we can solve such huge problems like climate or homelessness with a 51% majority that changes every 8 years, ain't happening. How do we know? It hasn't happened. We haven't, we've been talking about climate for a long time. We've been talking about homelessness for a long time. It is now time to start building bridges. So what happens in 4D is that if someone doesn't have a good logical argument, they will create an emotional argument. And as a psychotherapist, I've seen this over and over and over again. People come in and they'll say, yeah, he told me to do this and I did it. Something crazy. And I'm like, well, why did you do that? He was just so sure of himself. And this goes to something that happens in 4D that you guys really, really need to understand. And this is a psychological phenomenon called the Dunning-Krueger effect. Look it up, it's fascinating. But basically what the Dunning-Krueger effect is it states that people who are competent tend to underestimate their ideas, talents, and abilities, and people who are incompetent tend to overestimate their talents, ideas, and abilities. And how they found this Dunning-Krueger effect was that there was a bank robber who heard that you could use lemon juice to create invisible ink. So he rubbed his face with lemon and then robbed a bank thinking no one would recognize him. Now, when you think about the Dunning-Krueger effect and you look at the political system, the educational system, the corporate world, you're like, whoa, explains a lot. And that is in 4D. So how do we navigate above that? You got to go into 5D. And 5D is the level and layer of consciousness that is beyond polarity. It is beyond duality. It is where we can engage in paradoxical thinking and take context into account. It is both right and wrong, depending on who's subjectively thinking about it. It could be both right and wrong for the same person at the same time, or it's neither. When you can hold those perspectives in your mind without becoming unhinged, you now have the ability to create a better effect. So 2021 is going to be a year, I believe, where a lot of our sacred cows of our belief systems are going to be challenged right down to the core. And if you can let go of the idea of being right and think about, well, is it effective for me to think about it this way? And does it always have to be thought about this way? And did this thought come to me, or was I indoctrinated into it? Whenever I hear someone who says, I'm a lifelong blah, 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 generally speaking, I'm like, I don't think they've probably ever sat down and evaluated their belief systems. Why? Because of another egoic defense mechanism that I want to talk about, and that is introjection, all right? And introjection is where we accept certain standards to be true to avoid being scrutinized. We get it in school, we get it in religion, we get it in our families. And these introjects go under the level of our conscious awareness, where they become what we believe to be perceived as reality. The way to explain that is 500 years ago, people weren't debating whether the earth was flat. The earth was flat. No one was saying, no, I think it's not flat. No, they perceived it to be flat, and then they mistook a paradigm for actual reality. That is a lot of what is happening. So as we go into 2021, you're gonna have to be very savvy about understanding where people are, okay? And the thing that you have to understand is that people engage in egoic defenses because reality is too painful for them to see. And if you go at someone and start shaking their egoic defenses when they don't invite you to, it is like taking a knife to their throat. Why? Because the ego perceives this as a threat. And what do people do when they're threatened? They're going to do one of three things. They are going to run, they are going to get angry and defend themselves, or the third thing they're going to do is they're going to kill you before you kill them. And the ego perceives not being right as a certain death. It's a threat. This is why people get so angry when you start shaking their belief systems. So you can't do that. They're in 3D. It's too painful for them to look at. Now, when people start to wake up and they start questioning this, then they'll start saying, well, okay, I'm open to more different perspectives. From the 5D level, the way that you shift the paradigm is to be it, to embody this compassion, the ability to hear all sides without losing your mind, to get curious and say, why do you think of it that way? Is there any truth or logic in anything that they're saying? Then use it. So 2021 is a year that we're going to be able to really have to master this kind of work and be solid in our own grounding. Hope this was helpful to you guys. If it was, please share this video. Better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel. 2021 Quantum Shiwa is hitting the ground running with a lot of programs to help us all navigate through these incredible times. It's going to be exciting, but we're going to be very, very busy. And as always, you guys, sending you lots of love. Have a magical day.